Hello all my lovies, I would like to quickly just say I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it if you just quickly hit this subscribe button. It'll only take a second and it would really help me. Thank you so much and let's start the video. Good girls like bad boys. Part 2. Miss, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I can't tutor him, Tikki protested. Tikki, you are my top student. You can apply what you know by teaching someone else, Mrs. C said firmly. Tikki held back a huff of frustration. For obvious reasons, she did not want to associate with Plagg. After Tikki had made the mistake of glancing at the black-haired fairy, she had set herself up for disaster. She expected her year to be calm, quiet, uneventful, but that was not what happened. Plagg decided to stand on her desk the next day of class. "What are you doing?" she asked, annoyed. "I feel tall." Plagg smiled. "Okay then, get off my desk," she said, rolling her eyes. "I like it here, though," Plagg protested, crossing his arms, but the smirk on his face remained. Tikki rubbed her temples, not wanting to deal with him, and flew over to the chair of the desk and placed her bag on it. "Ha ha! We're desks, but whoa!" Tikki flew up and pushed Plagg off of the desk. "Hey, I could have died," he said dramatically, flying up back to her eye level. He pouted like a young child about to throw a tantrum. "You have wings. You can fly. You're fine," Tikki said in a bored tone. "You wouldn't have wanted to hurt me, would you?" He blinked and tried fluttering his eyelashes. "You know, I'd prefer if you got out of my face, and if that's by immense pain via injury, that would be even better," Tikki said, crossing her arms. "I love this. It's like a TV show. Tikki can't stand Plagg." Pauline laughed. She had been watching the whole thing. Plagg looked at Pauline, not even realizing she was there earlier. Pauline laughed and then pointed at her best friend, who looked even more annoyed than before. "Look, Sugar Cube, Plagg started, before Tikki hit him on the top of the head with a frown. "Ow, that hurt!" Tikki rolled her eyes again. "You're fine. Bottom line, if you couldn't figure it out by yourself, which I'm guessing you can't, I don't want to be friends. I don't want to associate with you. I don't want to deal with you. So go have fun with your friends. I don't want to deal with it," she said. Plagg looked at Tikki. "Wow, don't have to be so mean about it," he said, flying around in a circle, oddly with a smile. "Sorry," Tikki sighed. "Just don't bother me. I have work to do." Plagg laughed at hearing that sentence. "Work? That sucks. It's more fun to do stuff than work on school," Plagg said. Tikki huffed and rolled her eyes again. Flying over to Plagg, she spun him in a circle, then pushed him all the way to the top seat, farthest away from her. "There, stay," she said, shaking a finger at him. "Yes, ma'am." Plagg gave a 2-finger salute and sat down with a large grin. Now, Mrs. C's wanted her to tutor Plagg, but Tikki did not want to help him in any way. However, Mrs. C's stern look basically told her she didn't have much of a say in the matter. "Okay, I'll do it," Tikki finally said with a sigh. "You're gonna have a fun year," Pollen said with a smile when Tikki finally came out of the classroom. "Ugh." Tikki rubbed her temples and rolled her eyes. "I had everything planned out. My classes, my friends, how this year would go. Apparently, that's all going to be destroyed." Pollen laughed. "Well, it might be fun. All the unplanned stuff and all. Even teaching Plagg could be interesting." Pollen said brightly. "No, no way! I have a plan and I want to stick to it." Tikki refused. They both looked over to the large and loud group in the main circle of their school. Plagg may had been an annoying student in class, but there was no doubt that his antics earned him a lot of popularity. The mass of students laughed and shouted loudly, listening to Plagg make jokes and act like himself. He talked louder than everyone else, and the crowd roared with laughter with his every move. Not only that, but the swarm of female students who giggled and batted their eyelashes at him, winking whenever he even slightly looked in their direction. They smiled and laughed and tried so very hard to get his attention. It was quite pathetic, but even Tikki knew, yet wouldn't admit it, that Plagg was a very attractive fairy, and the attention he was getting from the girls was well earned. Tikki rolled her eyes as she looked back at Pollen. "That's why I have a plan for this year. Unless you would like to join that band of mindless drones watching and drilling over his every move," Tikki said, pushing Pollen's head in that direction. "Yeah, no, I'm good." Pollen laughed. "I'll stay with good old boring you." Tikki scrunched her nose at her friend and laughed. "Well, boring can be good," Tikki said. "Yep, then it means I can be the cool one." Pollen laughed and jumped up. Yes, you can." "You're late," Tikki drawled as Plagg flew into the empty classroom that they had scheduled the tutoring sessions in. "But I'm here now," he replied with a grin. Tikki huffed and rolled her eyes. "If you think that little smile of yours is going to earn you some extra points, then you're sorely mistaken. I'm not one of those airheaded baby beauties that fawn over you day by day," she said. Plagg looked at her. His eyes squinted as if he was trying to figure something out. "I know that," he said, after a few moments. "The day you trail after me like a lost puppy pleading for my attention is the day the entire world ends." He flew over to the desk next to her and sat down. Tikki threw up her hands and sharply laughed. "Finally, you know something! Jesus Christ, hallelujah!" she cried out dramatically. Plagg chuckled. "This is why I requested you to tutor me." Tikki glared at him, suppressing a smile. He was funny, she had to admit it in her head at the very least. "Of course you did." The tutoring session was supposed to only last an hour, but unsurprisingly, it was longer than that. "I still don't get it. Why does the motion of the wand matter? We're saying different words," Plagg said. Tikki took a deep breath to keep from pulling her hair out. "Because that activates the correct energies, magical dust, and serums required for each spell. The words are the spell and how we project the magic. The wand and motions help us access it earlier until you learn to do spells without it."
Plagg stared at her as if she was speaking a foreign language. Tikki inhaled deeply and exhaled quickly, even pulling her hands down in rhythm. So, you know when you're making cheese, right? You have the milk, and that's the base of all cheese. And then you add other stuff in, and you have this big, heavy machines to help make it. It's kind of like where the milk is the base, our magic. But it's all because it's all mixed up and can be different things with some help. And the machinery is like the wand. You could make cheese without it, but it would be so much harder when you're first learning. It helps us access and do things to the milk that's a little tougher to do. The other stuff is like our dust and serums and potions. They add to the base. Plagg's eyes lit up. I get cheese, he said excitedly. Tikki laughed, finally. Get it now? Plagg nodded his head energetically. Tikki smiled and nodded her head. Good. She grabbed her bags and began to fly out of the room, and texted Pollen to come over to her house to hang out. Thank you, Sugar Cube, Plagg cried loudly from the classroom. Don't call me that, Tikki shouted back, but smiled at his antics. Tikki was not an airheaded lost puppy who fawned over a person. She had only known Plagg for a few weeks, and even his thick head knew that. But Plagg was also not a complete, stupid, thick-headed, and bad boy type dunce. Despite how he acted, he was genuinely kind and cracked jokes during the hour and a half, and actually tried to understand the material. Tikki could definitely respect a person who tried to learn. How'd it go? Pollen asked. It went pretty good. Of course, he was being kind of annoying and called me Sugar Cube again. Bleh. But he tried to learn and didn't act too entitled to enjoy the wonderful feeling of learning something new, she explained. Pollen laughed and set down her phone. She was laying on Tikki's bed and looked at her friend. Joy and wonder are not words I'd associate learning with, but getting full marks and sixes without doing much work or paying attention in class because your best friend is a crazy nerd is joyful and wonderful. Pollen laughed. Tikki crossed her arms and turned her nose away, giving a snotty, Chill, I still love you. Pollen tugged at Tikki's sweater. Tikki giggled and lay down on her bed next to Pollen. Fine, I'll let it slide. Just this time, though. I'm not a nerd. I like to learn, but I'm not a nerd. You make sure of it by forcing socializing upon me. Pollen took pictures of the two girls, and they both laughed. Who knows? You could be friends with him, she said with a wide smile, and poked Tikki's side. Tikki shook her head. Nah, that's impossible. We're so different, she claimed, picking at her fingernails. Pollen laughed again. I bet that's what you thought when you met me. Tikki laughed nervously. She trailed off, trying to find some other reason as to why she didn't think Pollen and her would be friends when they met some 3 years ago. You know I'm right, Pollen said in a sing-song voice. Tikki laughed and hit Pollen's arm. Fine. Pollen laughed again. Maybe you'll even... She paused for dramatic effect and smirked at her friend. Date him? Pollen said. Tikki gasped. No! Tikki said loudly. Pollen fell off the bed laughing. I'm kidding. Tikki glared at her. I'll never, she said firmly. Pollen held up her hand in surrender and laughed. Okay, she said. But those words didn't stop her eyes from flickering onto the faint blush on her best friend's face. Paulin smiled. She knew Tikki better than anyone, so if anyone could figure out who Tikki had hidden affection for, it would be her. Never only lasts so long,